What's up, nerds? Oh man, it has been a busy week, hasn't it? There's been a lot of excitement going on, especially with DC Comics, hasn't there? Especially with that whole Tim Drake situation. It's been a whole barrel of fun from that whole situation. I think I've talked to just about everyone in my immediate vicinity about that whole situation. Just about everybody wants to know, what do you think about it? So it's been fun talking about that with everybody, but I decided, I need a little bit of a palate cleanser. I need to talk about something else. So I figured, why not talk about one of DC's other ongoing mistakes, namely Infinite Frontier number 3. So, picking up the story, if you've been keeping up with it, we're picking up the part of the story where Alan Scott has already come out to his kids because if you didn't know, that is another thing that is still happening. Alan Scott is gay now. So, he came out to his kids. He's now met up with his son Todd, and they were going to go meet up with Jade. They get to the JSA headquarters, and the bitch blew up. So, they're trying to figure out where's Jade because she's obviously missing after the explosion. So we get this nice little opening shot where they're like kicking ass and everything, and we get all these text messages between Todd and his boyfriend, where he's just kind of like talking to him. Well, his boyfriend is basically telling him that he wants to go on a double date with like Todd and his dad. He doesn't want to date both of them. Like he has an idea for someone he wants Alan to date, and he wants them to go double date. So he's asking him have you brought this idea up to your dad yet? And he's like, no, not yet. So he's like, I'll do it later. But anyway, they finally get to where they're going to go talk to the villain Shade. So, well, former villain. He doesn't really act like a villain anymore. So he's like, I was wondering when it would be my turn for a visit. I heard about your new lease on life, Alan. Congratulations. New lease on life. That's what I'm talking. Even like the villain or former villains know about the whole coming out thing, and they're all so happy and supportive for Alan. God. So he says, I figured if anyone had some insight into missing heroes, it would be you, Shade. He's telling him, I'm afraid I won't be much help, old friend. Many of my former associates have gone quiet. However, old grudges die hard, maybe assuming one of your enemies is your folly. Perhaps an enemy of the JSA's legacy? So Alan doesn't really get it, but Todd does. He's like, Dad, it's not one of your villains, it's one of mine and Jade's villains. So this is the one part that's weird because he says, I know who we need to see next. Todd says, I know who we need to see next. But then the next time we actually see those two characters, where they're showing up, Alan is the one explaining why they're there. So I don't know why Todd is the one saying, I know where we need to go. But anyway, so we cut back over to what's going on with the recently resurrected Roy Harper. And he's used the power of the Black Lantern ring to basically make projections, and as a result it's now kind of like turned him into a zombie, and it's put the Omega symbol that you usually see on Darkseid, now it's put it on his chest instead. So he's, I guess, just fully out of control of himself or whatever, and because of that he's using memories to try and bring himself back, or he's just having memories while he's in this state. But apparently it's the memory that he has that just happened actually, where the ring showed him like a vision of his daughter where she kind of looks like she's like grown up and apparently alive. So that's what brings him back, because he says she's alive and he's trying to figure out where. But then he kind of realizes, oh shit, he's in space. So he just kind of comes up with a plan initially that he's going to make another construct of a spaceship and fly himself back to Earth. But then he's like, no, no, no. The last time I used the ring, I turned into a zombie. So he says, okay, I can't risk that again, and I can't just take the ring off. But if my daughter is alive down there, I'm going to find her. I'll just float here until someone picks me up. And that's exactly what he does. He literally just sits there like as if he's on a floating bench or some shit. But anyway, he happens to be right when he says aliens and heroes are coming and going from Earth all the time, right? Well, apparently, because he gets hit by some headlights or something. But again, we do another transition over to what's going on with yet another team of people, which is on Earth 22 with Magog here, who is fighting. Well, he's not really fighting, but he's kind of like encountered President Superman, Calvin Ellis, and Thomas Wayne Batman. Just like needless incarnations of characters we already love. I will say one thing, though, that I've always said. I do love the Thomas Wayne costume. We didn't really need this whole storyline of him existing. Like I get like in the Flashpoint storyline, it made sense. There was no real reason for them to keep having him go. Like they could have just left him there. They didn't need to keep. I don't know why they keep having him in like continuing storylines, other than the costume looks cool. If that's the only reason, I still don't fully support it, even though I do like the costume. But anyway, it's him and Calvin Ellis. And then Magog is just all pissed off because he's saying that he reeks of, what was it? Reality manipulation. And then he says, if I must use your friend as a warning to any uninvited guests, I will. But then that's when all of a sudden Justice Incarnate comes in, which is basically just like a Justice League made up of all the different characters from different Earths. You know, that's the way we're doing things now. Everything is alternate timelines and multiverses and shit. So Magog apparently knows them, and he says, you can throw whoever you want at me, Machine Head, but you won't like my backup. So all of a sudden, Calvin Ellis gets in the middle. He's like, yo, enough. And then he just kind of explains the situation. He tells the team, look, he has a right to be pissed because we're intruding on his Earth. And then he tells him, like, look, we're just here to examine the wreckage that you just jumped out of, because it's not from your universe or whatever the hell. So he's like, all right, fine. Do your test and make sure you get the hell out of here with this dude. And he throws Batman back at them. Or Thomas Wayne, whatever. So they start looking at it, and they can't really right off detect, like, where is this thing from? And then Thomas Wayne makes this suggestion where he says, the Barry Allen I knew said he could feel vibrations to sense what world he was in. Would the ship react to someone with the same vibration pattern as where it was made? So they say it's worth a try, and they all like try touching it. But this is where I'm saying I don't really know how this makes sense. But then again, maybe I just don't know much about like vibrational frequencies or whatever. Because it's like Calvin goes up and touches it, and it starts to vibrate under his touch. And that's how they realize, like, oh, okay, it's from his Earth. But that's where I'm saying, like, if they're at the same frequency, wouldn't it vibrate under everybody else's touch? Like, wouldn't they all feel a difference and he wouldn't? I don't know. So anyway, Thomas is saying, like, let me ask you something. You think Magog is the only person sick of the multiverse? And I think he's probably speaking for just about damn near everybody when he says that. Everybody's sick of this multiverse crap. So Calvin Ellis says, that's what worries me, Thomas. I thought the multiverse was coming together in harmony, but I was wrong. Yes, DC, you were wrong. Machine Head, I'm going to return to Earth 23. While I do that, I need you to find, and that's where we cut over to Barry, because he's been taken by Psycho Pirate. And as you can see, this is kind of made to look like a vintage like comic book page or whatever, which is supposed to be your indication that this is like in his head. So he has Jay Garrick, the original Flash, telling him like, you got to focus, Barry. The multiverse needs you. You need to run fast, run faster than you ever have before. So Barry's like, yes, I'm going to do it. I can do it. I'm the fastest man alive. So then we see he's on this giant like hamster wheel. And Psycho Pirate is using, of course, the Medusa mask to manipulate him. And he's telling him, like, yes, save the multiverse, Barry. Run, Barry, run, which has become a popular thing, right? And then this is where I'm saying, I don't know if they went somewhere else before this, but all of a sudden Obsidian, because that's where we're cutting over back to Obsidian and Alan Scott, Obsidian is telling him, like, why Bloodhaven? And then Alan explains, before reality was changed, Command D was being used for dangerous experiments. Last I heard, the DEO got their hands on it. We need to get inside without causing a fuss. So Obsidian tells him, like, all right, well, I know you usually like to do things with lights, but I can assure you sometimes being in the shadows is kind of more beneficial. So they sneak in using the shadow powers. And then he's kind of talking about how Jade always had this confidence, and if she were here, she could have probably found herself by now, type of thing. So he says, I used to have a hard time with any kind of relationship, let alone a team of superheroes, because he switches it to himself, saying, "No, she was so confident on a team, and I've never been all that good." But then this is where Alan gets a chance to ask, things going well with Damon? He says, "Yeah, they're great. How about you? You find time to get out there when you're not keeping an eye on the multiverse?" So he says, "I'm too old for the dating scene, son," which, I mean, I guess he doesn't look it anymore, which this is ironic. I've always wanted Alan Scott to be drawn like this, like still young and, capable, heroic. And yet for like the last, I don't know, 10 years, he's always been drawn, well, except for like the New 52 shit. But other than that, like whenever they've drawn like classic Alan Scott, like they always draw him looking all old and shit. And now all of a sudden they have him back to looking young and they're writing him incorrectly. But whatever. Obsidian says, "That is the biggest load and you know it. I'll be your wingman." Gross. He says, "Damon has a friend he thinks you'd hit it off with." Again, gross. You're trying to set up your old man with another dude? That's just sick. Anyway, you got to let these queens come out of the closet at their own speed. So he says, "Son, you are not setting me up. And there was someone I knew before reality changed. I doubt he waited for me." Well, I mean, it depends on the person. Some people are willing to wait after that type of thing, but not everyone's willing to do the long distance thing. Anyway, Obsidian says, "Dad, you'll never know unless you," but then all of a sudden they see Director Bones running through the hallway, and they decide, okay, yeah, we need to follow him. So they follow him and see that he's running to this gigantic ship, and he's yelling at like some of the workers that they need to hurry up because they're behind schedule, and we need more carrier arcs vibrating today. Get those cell loaded now. So Todd gets all pissed off. And he's like, "What kind of spaceship needs prison cells or whatever?" And then they get encountered by this character. And if you're wondering to yourself, like, why is RoboCop's spunky teen sister all of a sudden like getting the drop on them? Well, her name is Extract, and I don't know anything about her other than that. But they do give us her name, so I knew that. And then she uses a team of other people to help her kind of like capture them. Well, I say capture them, but they start immediately fighting back, of course. So it kind of looks pretty cool. I like the way that they use like their powers and everything. I do kind of miss like you see it a little bit here with Alan's powers. Like Alan's powers have always been shown to have more of an effect of like looking like fire as opposed to being like just like a hard light construct like the regular Green Lanterns. So that's one thing I kind of miss. Like he does still do like projections and constructs, but I do miss like seeing more of them having the like flame effect on the actual like constructs themselves as well. But I mean that's just a minor gripe because like I said, you do see a little bit of that flame effect up here in the first panel. You just don't really see it very much all the way through, and I kind of miss it. But that's me. So all of a sudden, Cameron Chase comes up. She's got this big ass gun, and she's telling him like, "I know where Jade is, but you don't understand what is at stake here. Bones' plan is the only way to save our world." So he's like, "Chase?" But right at that moment, she kind of like blasts at them and shit. And then we go aboard the ship to see that Roy has been taken aboard by the people that are kind of like directing it. I don't know. I guess it's DEO. Yeah, we're with the DEO. And the reason why I'm saying this, why I have some hesitation here in my voice, is because they're saying that this is Agent Hammond. Hammond. Yes, that's right. You heard me correctly. Hammond. As in Hector. But you may be wondering, that's not Hector Hammond. That's not what Hector Hammond looks like. Why, that's what Hector Hammond looks like. I know, and they do address that here. Because he's like, to protect Earth Zero's interests from a different kind of invader, that's why they're around. Because he says, after the last year's events, and with the multiverse being what it is, the DEO was reinstated with a whole new mission. So Roy asks him, "So you keep an eye out for anyone trying to crash our world?" He's like, "Exactly. Or, people who came back from the dead." So that's where they finally turn their guns on him. And he's telling him, like, "Stole that technology from Sonar. Scrambles your equilibrium so you can't use the ring. The bosses weren't sure if that would work, but I'm a little bit of an expert in power rings." So that's when Roy finally puts it together. He's like, "Hector Hammond. He's like one of Green Lantern's enemies. You look different." And he says, "When reality returned, I was reset to the factory settings, so to speak. I consider it a gift, but it still left me with a lot of questions. Let's take a trip, shall we?" So right then he like presses a button, and they all of a sudden just kind of like, I don't know, hyper jump into the bleed. And he's saying, like, when we heard you were alive, we had to know how. So we sent Extract to collect you. She thought you were just a simple archer. Imagine our surprise when you had that ring. That black ring you have on your hand. I'm not even sure it's from our multiverse, but it chose you. Why? So he's basically telling him, like, I have no idea. And he says, I didn't expect you to. But a deal has been made for you and that ring, Roy. So he's asking him, like, well, where are you taking me? And then all of a sudden, before he can actually tell him, something crashes into them. So he's looking, he's like, something crashed into us in the bleed? Like, that's impossible. So he's like, unless, and they're telling him, like, they're inside already. So he says, secure the doors to this room. They cannot get access to the helm. There's no telling what Bones would do if we lose another ship. So they're saying, like, should we call Extract? And he says, no, we'll take care of them ourselves this time. But right at that moment, all of a sudden, Roy uses the ring again to shoot some arrows into them. And then he makes a construct of Hal to uppercut Hector. And then all of a sudden he starts to feel it transforming him again into a zombie. So he's saying, like, he's trying to, like, stop it or whatever, but then the team that these people have been trying to fight off break in and says, great, they must have found Zombie World in the multiverse. You know what that means? Aim for the head. So that's where we see it's Jade, and she's got some of the other members of the like Infinity Incorporated. So we got, or also, they've all been like Justice Society, Infinity Incorporated, both, whatever. So you got like Jade, and then you have we got like what, Nuklon, I think, or Atom Smasher. Doesn't he go by both names? Atom Smasher, whatever the hell. Power Girl, Yolanda as Wildcat, and then who's this one? Someone help me out on this one. I can't always remember the kids' names, especially this one. I don't know why. But anyway, yeah, that's what we basically get from here. And as you can see, Infinite Incorporated. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens from that. Like, I don't all the way hate them bringing back that team. I'm more partial to the actual JSA myself. I mean, I don't know if you can see. I literally have like part of the team like up there. I have Dr. Midnight up in front because he's my favorite. And then you also have like Starman, Hourman, Sandman, the original like Green Lantern and original Flash. I mean, hell, even like the Golden Age Superman and Batman were on it, at points in time. They just weren't always regular members because, well, they were the flagship characters, so of course they couldn't always be on the team. So I mean, I would love it if they would bring back an actual like Justice Society of America, but at this point, I don't really ask for things to come back in comics anymore because like it's always just such a shit show. And it's everybody's interpretation of what this character meant to them. Like nobody actually gives a shit about continuity anymore. It's just everybody is expected to do every writer's interpretation of what they think the character is. It's become ridiculous. And I guess that's why they have to have this bullshit where it's like there are so many different multiverses because everybody's interpretation of the character is valid. And that's why I'm saying when you have that type of thing where everybody's interpretation is correct, there's no continuity. There is no real canon because everything's canon. Everything is a part of the multiverse. Every like side story exists somewhere, and therefore it can all tie into the main narrative. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of like the idea, the tack that DC is taking right now. That just everything is just a grand part of the greater DC universe tapestry, and all of it has to be accepted as canon at the exact same time. So I don't really know what else to say about that. Like, we'll see what I guess happens. I want to say that I'm slightly compelled by this whole thing that's happening with the Black Lantern ring, only because, like, I mean, Roy is making his own projections, and then it seems like Darkseid is the one calling out to him saying, like, come to me, my Black Lantern. So I don't know if it's Darkseid that's coming, because we haven't seen what's happened with Darkseid. It seems like perhaps Darkseid has gained the powers of Necron and is now going to use the Black Lantern Corps for his own purposes. That seems to be what they're building up to. I don't know for sure. I don't know for certain, but that seems to be the case. So if I'm right, I won't be surprised. but we'll find out in the end. So, I mean, if you kept up with this, if you're keeping up with this, do feel free to let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you're not keeping up with this, also feel free to let me know your thoughts on it down below. But yeah, that's going to do it for me here, guys. So if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like the video, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed. I also started at a Substack, so if you're into like reading reviews, perhaps you can also look there for more of content from me, because I'm going to be doing more comics that I don't actually review like on the channel here, because it's easier to just like write a review of a comic sometimes instead of like, you know, setting all this up, making sure I'm in an entertaining type of mood, or at least trying to get into that type of mindset, and then also just, you know, sitting down, editing the video, uploading it, doing that whole thing. Sometimes it can just be easier to just write about the comics. So that's what I'm saying. If you enjoy reading about this type of stuff too, and you enjoy the way that I talk about comics, maybe, you know, consider going and looking at that. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. So if you're done here, then go and read a book. And if not, then I will see you on my next video.